G'day podcasters, welcome back to Season 6 of True Blue Conversations with your host Adam Bloom, the author of Easy Target, now available at adambloom.com.au. 8 years ago, after returning from 3 tours of Afghanistan and then gaining experience and education in financial planning, Warren Loudon teamed up with fellow veteran Dave Vaughan and started Loudon & Vaughan Private Wealth, founded with the underlying belief that every person matters and every dollar counts, providing comprehensive tailored financial advice and wealth management services for you and your family. Loudon & Vaughan will guide you towards your financial goals with integrity and transparency. Whether you're planning for retirement, investing for the future, or managing your family's wealth, they've got you covered. Visit loudonandvaughan.com.au or call 02 9538 2704 to book a meeting with Warren today.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue. Today I'm coming to you live from Perth and beautiful Western Australia. It's great to be over here, and today I'm interviewing a veteran who spent a lot of his time in the Special Forces, started in the reserves, and then was at 4 RAR Commando, and then over to the SAS regiment, and now he's a entrepreneur, multiple business owner, and it's great to have him on. Nick Caldwell, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. Welcome to the gym.
Thanks, mate. It's we're recording in the gym, mate. So the mill. So I've been to your gym up in Brisbane, and it's good to come and see the gym in Perth, mate. So, mate, before we get started on your military career, let's go back to a young Nick. Can you tell us about life growing up and what we like at school, and do you have any hobbies and brothers and sisters?
Sure. Grew up in a family of 5, so I was a middle son. I had 2 sisters, an older sister and a younger sister, and we grew up in southeast Queensland. I was very lucky to spend probably from the age of 9 onwards in a rural area, and we basically grew up amongst the pineapple plantations in southeast Queensland. So very lucky to live just in the bush, really. So was riding motorbikes from a very young age, driving cars from a very young age, shooting from a very young age, spending a lot of time outside. So I was basically in, I think, year 5 primary school when we moved out there, and since right up to the point I left to join the army, that's where I grew up. As far as school goes, I enjoyed school, but not as much as not going to school. So I spent a lot of time surfing. If I could avoid school, I would. Yep. And if you were looking for me, you'd probably find me at the beach surfing. I got really good at surfing, not necessarily good at school. But I did finish year 10 very well, and then I went on to year 11 and 12. But I'd actually decided from the age of about 10 that I wanted to join the army.
Yeah, right.
And it all happened when I watched the movie Commando when it first came out. I think that was 85 or 86.
Yep.
And it captured my imagination very early, because I thought that was basically the ultimate job. That was the ultimate of what a man should be. Mm. Little did I realise that not everyone in Special Forces is built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you look at a lot of my cohort, a lot of them are nowhere near 6 foot, nowhere near 100 kilos. It's just the fight in the man, not necessarily the size of the guy or the woman that counts, really. Mm. So spent 10 years just thinking about it, from the age of 10 up to the time I joined the army, thinking about joining the army. When I left school, the intention was to go join the army straight out of school. But my old man, knowing what my intentions were as far as Special Forces was, he said to me, "Well, not very many people pass selection. Mm. So what's your backup plan?" Yeah, and I hadn't given that much thought. Yeah, so I had to think about it, and I thought, well, what other job would I have liked to do, which is in the same stream of work? Like there's basically high adventure. You're required to be smart, be strong, be fit, be intelligent, be coordinated, be skilled. Mm. I was very much into martial arts, so I thought probably the next most logical choice was to be James Bond. So I decided that I'd go do a Bachelor of Arts in Asian Studies and Linguistics, Political Science. So I applied for the University of Sydney, and I moved to Sydney and started a Bachelor of Arts there.
Yeah, right.
At the same time, 2 years before that, I joined the Army Reserves. Mm. Then in 98, the opportunity came, once I started my first year at uni, the opportunity came to do commando selection, because they'd re-rolled 4RR to be 4RR Commando.
Yep.
And I believe I was on the second selection of that year, so it's a bit hazy. It's over 25 years ago or something. But it was an exciting opportunity that I thought, well, I'd spent a lot of time training for it, a lot of time thinking about it. At least I'll have a crack at it, because I didn't have the confidence to think that I would pass. I just had the confidence to think that I'll have a crack and have a good crack at it.
Yep.
At that stage, it was the first 10 days of the Carter course. And I thought, well, if I can do the first 10 days of the Carter course, it's a good feather in my cap. I'll have a crack at it, and ended up finishing the first 10 days, got picked up, and then started my Commando basic training course about a month later.
So with that, did you, like you said, you wanted to join the military from a young age. Did you have any family members that had served, or were you the first?
None. Yeah. So basically I was the first. My old man had done some time in the EMF? Anyway, it was the old form of reserves back in the day, and he was in the Transport Corps. But that wasn't really an influencing factor on it. As I said, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the main influence. For better or worse, like at the end of the day, it was enough to motivate me, even though it's not really the reality. In fact, it's nowhere near the reality. You don't go taking on 1,000 men and get a couple of cool scratches on your cheek and your arm, and carry like 20 guns and use all of them. Yeah. And have, so it's one of those things that I did a lot of reading. I read every single military book I could, watched every single military movie, everything from Chuck Norris to Jean-Claude Van Damme to, all those old and bolds, all the old superstars, all the old movie stars back in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
And then looking at every bit of Army recruiting information that was put out there in terms of the regiment, because I didn't know about the SAS at that point in time.
Yep. I
knew about the Commandos, but I didn't realise that they were only, at that stage, were only a reserve unit.
So in 96, when you joined the reserves, because the internet didn't exist back then, did you just go into the recruiter and say, hey, I want to join, like, try before I buy? And with that going forward to your Commando selection, were you a bit of a disadvantage to the guys who were in the regular army, and did you find that harder of going through that?
I think, well, I didn't, when I went into recruiting, I didn't say I wanted to do special forces. I just try to maintain a low profile. Like, I wasn't the most confident kid. So I was just like, okay, let's just dip our toe in the water here and see how it goes and see how it's received. So I just thought, we'll just take it one step at a time. And then if I believe that had at least a good start in terms of training and had enough reinforcement from the people around me to say, okay, you should have a crack at it, then I would make the decision to have a crack at it. I think the rest of it was basically naivety.
Yeah, right.
Like thinking, okay, we'll just have a crack. How hard could it be? Obviously I thought it was hard, but at that stage...
How old are you at that stage?
I was 18.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I'd never really done anything that hard in my life, really, super hard. As far as in terms of physical, anything that of that level, anywhere near it. I was very lucky to have, when I was at university, to have the time to do as many courses as either a flesh out to make up numbers on other courses. And one of the hardest courses I did at that stage of my life was as a flesh out for one of the officer modules.
Okay.
Where they had to dig in. They basically did, I think it was 3 platoon attacks a day. Then they had to dig into whatever stage at night. And then they conducted an ambush that night. Yep. And all the time, if a different officer cadet was doing an O group and setting up for the next stage. And so just being a person who's filling out the section for those, having to dig in, having to pack march, having to do platoon attacks, all that sort of thing was a very good insight into slightly a higher level than the, bag-ass private. You know what I mean? So getting an understanding, a bigger understanding at a company or at least platoon level of what is required of an infantry soldier, but also the constant work that those guys have to do as part of those modules that they're doing. Right. So that was a good introduction to me at that stage. Still super keen, still young and naive and very optimistic about the army. Yep. So any chance I get to do any time with the reserves, I took it.
And with that too, because when you joined in 96, political correctness wasn't around, and what was Kapooka like for you? Was it the shock and awe like a lot of the guys have told me, and what do you remember of your time at Kapooka?
No, so I did the reserve recruiting course, obviously, so I did I think it was at Wacol in Queensland.
Oh, okay,
so
right.
Queensland. I'm pretty sure it was only 3 weeks. It was fun. Like it was one of those things, like I said, I was super keen. Yeah. And super green.
Yeah.
Like the idea is that anything army I was in. Like I was fully 100% into it.
Yeah, right.
And you could have yelled at me all day for 80 hours, so I just would have loved it. More than likely. I don't know. But that never happened. So I enjoyed the recruit course. I enjoyed, in fact, every course I did. Every course to the day I left the army. Even if it was even if it was a course that's traditionally seen as something that takes you away from what you want to do, if it's part of the green, I still loved it.
Yeah, right. And so we move forward now to 98 selection, and because back then they would develop, like, you'd gone through the second ever, like, second, or was it?
I think it was the second, so it's definitely 98.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit hazy as to which one it was, but I'm pretty sure it was the second selection.
So and back then, what, like, selection evolved over the years, and it's evolved to what it is now, but was it 3 weeks at that? Was it 3 weeks that you can remember?
Commando selection at that point was 10 days.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah, right.
So 10 days, it's basically the first 10 days of the Carter course. Mm-hmm. So after 10 days, those people nominated to do Commando were left the Carter course, and the rest of the guys who were continuing on to SAS continued on with the 21 days.
Okay.
So it was probably, at that stage of my life, obviously the hardest thing I'd ever done. But when I look back on it, there were harder courses in the Commando reinforcement cycle. But I guess it's the accumulation of all the courses that we were doing that time meant that was basically the selection went on for months.
Yeah, right.
So we were still losing guys right up to the moment we got badged.
And for you, once was the Rio cycle, how long was that for you? Can you remember?
Yeah, it was easily about 12 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And what was that like after, you dreamed about it, you finally got badged? And because I know they now do, you presented your beret and it changed. What happened for you back then?
So I was still a reservist so I did all the full-time courses because that's what was done at that point. And so I was still a reservist, so I actually got badged back at my depot, which was in Mossman, in Middle Head in Mossman.
Yeah, right.
Back when one Commando company was based there. Mm-hmm. And so it was great. Like, it's one of those things where we were very welcomed, treated very well. And from that point onwards, we were treated like professionals.
Yeah, right.
It was a great place to work. You still could do as many days as you wanted to as reservist, but the intent was then to go, okay, sweet. Well, I passed all these courses. I don't need my backup plan anymore. Now I'm going to go into full-time Army. So I transitioned to full-time Army in 2000.
Yeah, right. And for that, you did because you'd done your reserve, did you have to go back to Kapuka? Because I know some guys,
through.
Yeah, right. And what was happening? So you go full time, and what was happening around the unit at that point, like in 2000?
In 2000, so the Olympics were on. So because I transitioned to 4RR Commando at that stage, we were basically playing out a cordon and enemy and fodder for 2 squadrons, which is great, which is also another learning experience. Playing enemy for a lot of their build-up work was awesome insight. Supporting a lot of what they were doing when they were operating around Sydney was great insight. It's also more motivation to go to SAS.
Yeah.
Just seeing the speed, the aggression, the expertise, the professionalism. Just when you're playing enemy, you realise you have no chance. When they're clearing those rooms, you don't know from which direction, how fast, and while you're thinking all that, they're on you. Yeah, so it was just an awesome experience to see them at the top of their game, operating at that level, realising that you have so much work to do.
Yep.
And there is so much more that you can get out based on what you can see from the level they were at. And then when they had their gear off and they were just cruising around, they treated everyone well. They were top of their game. They didn't need to speak to us. They didn't need to socialise with us, but they did.
Yep.
So that was like the icing on the cake in terms of the professionalism, the self-confidence of these guys to know that, yes, we are top of our game and we are the top in terms of the apex, but we don't need to behave like we believe our own hype.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
so
was that the first time that you had been exposed to them, or had you, in the time that you'd been in Commandos before, build up to Olympics, you started to know about the SAS?
Yeah, so I read the book Bravo 20.
Yeah,
so when they came out,
I
bought as soon as it came out, I bought it.
Yep.
I read it cover to cover a number of times, and the one that got away as well. So all those books put SAS on the map, and I realised, okay, there is another level here, and in Australia that level is SAS.
Yep.
In fact, around the world it's SAS. So my targets changed, and at that time I thought I treated the Commandos as a stepping stone to get there, because I was still building confidence in terms of, if I achieve this goal, maybe I can look at the next horizon. Mm-hmm. And when I got to the Commandos, I got exposure to 2 Squadron very early, and I realised, okay, that's the next level, and that's the sort of person you need to be.
Yep.
And I've got to find a way to do it. And then in 4RAR Commando at the time, there were former regiment guys in the commandos for compassionate posting, or for whatever reason they rotated in and out. In fact, a lot of our cadre staff or our commando basic training courses were ex-regiment guys. Hans Fleer, Graham, what's Graham's last name? Anyway, it'll come to me. A few other guys as well. They just rotated through also in one commando regiment, one commando company. All the cadre staff were SAS guys as well. So Mal Woods and Clint Palmer and guys like that. Mm-hmm. Guys who'd been around for ages, and they reinforced my perception of what being a regiment guy was.
Yep.
In spades. Like they lived that image effortlessly.
Yeah, right.
So it's very easy to see a working model of where to aim and who to be.
And then 2001, mate, you get your first deployment to East Timor, and as you're saying, you're green. And what was your role over there in 2001?
Well, prior to that, actually, in 2000, we got stood to go to launch out of Townsville for a quick job out of Solomons. I think it was a while ago now, but basically we were there with 2 Squadron because obviously they were on team at the time, and the job was to potentially repatriate Australian citizens from the Solomon Islands back to Australia, and that was a quick job for the commandos. I wasn't involved in it. Basically, it was basically a taxi ride up there, pick up some Aussies and bring them back. So, but we spent a lot of time in Townsville waiting for that, just in case it got surged or scaled up. But that was my first whiff of an actual deployment. Mm-hmm. But then the next major deployment was the 6-month deployment to East Timor in 2001. That was obviously very exciting. By that stage, I'd gone from Bravo Company. In fact, my first team commander was Nick Hill.
Yep, the late Nick Hill, yep.
Nick Hill, yep. And it was great. It was good learning experience operating with him. Steve Willis, there's Jamie Zimmerman, and a couple other guys, like Steve Willis, Commando Steve from The Biggest Loser.
Yep.
So getting a good introduction to the level that was there at the unit. And then from that point, I was posted to Recon Snipers. And for Recon Snipers, I went to Timor with Recon Snipers. And in my patrol, in fact, was 2 ex-regiment guys.
Yeah, right.
So we get to see, they'd left the unit a while ago, and they'd still served as reserves, and when they put the call out to bolster numbers for Timor, because the unit for our commando was still recruiting enough commandos, and obviously it's a slow process, so they had to bolster with as many people as they can get, and they bolstered the Recon Snipers with former regiment guys.
Yep.
Pete Rutherland was another guy in the tune as well.
Yep.
So we had a whole bunch of good guys in there, including ex-Kiwi Joe Hortai, who was in my patrol. In fact, we pretty much joined 4RAR Commando together.
Yeah, right.
So it was great. It was a great deployment. It was basically we were re-rolled to an infantry battalion. We didn't actually assume the moniker of a special forces unit because they needed battalions to rotate through. Mm-hmm. So I think because it kicked off in '99, we got there in 2001. A lot of the initial conflict or initial excitement had subsided. So basically, we were doing routine patrols as a Recon Snipers platoon, doing recon patrols along the border, on the TCL, I think it was called. And it was largely uneventful, but good exposure to patrolling in small teams.
And for you too as well, a lot of the guys I've spoken to, especially for the original days of 4RAR and then now 2 Commando, they said it was all stepping stones and carrying live ammo for the first time, and the mindset of actually this is the real thing now, and that would have been for you as well. Like, it's all stepping stones and leading on to what eventually would be, the war on terror and being in Iraq and Afghanistan. But that's in 2001, that wasn't even talked about, and for you, that would have been a mindset shift as well. Yeah.
I mean, it was to me, it was like living the dream. It's another step, and it was a definitely achievable. I mean, we went straight to war. I don't think the Australian government, Australian military would have committed us straight away unless it was absolutely critical that it occurred. But it was a good, like a nursery patrol that went for 6 months, basically learning how to patrol, how to operate, get accustomed to an operational tempo, getting accustomed to how to think on operations, carrying live ammunition, for example, trying to develop TTPs and trying to develop processes that were better than when you first started it, and trying to enhance everything you were doing, and getting to see how, because we had those SAS guys within our patrols, seeing how they operated and seeing the level at which they operated. And it was very interesting, very exciting to see, okay, everything they did was very slow, very quiet, very tactical. And, yeah, it's just next level. Yeah.
And is that you were in the jungle as well? Was that, or so that has another element as well.
Yeah,
that
we spent a lot of time in the mountains as well, but yeah, all the time in the jungle, basically carrying minimal equipment, but a lot of surveillance equipment. And just basically setting up OPs and doing a lot of tracking. And we'd done the tracking course prior to going to that deployment, so we get a chance to practice our skills. Yeah, it was great. It was good, just a great way to get introduced to operations at a very low tempo, but enough to start building confidence. And also, at the same time, MRAC 4 were there. So MRAC 4 was basically the designation for the SAS regiment over there. And because we were situated in Ballabo, MRAC 4 was situated in Ballabo, just in a slightly different compound. So seeing those guys, seeing how they operated, obviously they had a different kit to us, and it was like FOMO every time. A lot of our guys were contemplating doing selection as well. In fact, most of my patrol, we did selection together. Straight after Timor. And then, I think the major occurrence that occurred during that deployment is we were coming from a patrol and we were having, I think it was breakfast or lunch, and someone just stood up and go, "What the fuck?" Looking at TV in the mess, and a plane had just flown into the Twin Towers, and we just basically, as we were talking about, another plane flew into the Twin Towers, and we just looked at each other around the table and go, "I'm joining the regiment. I'm going to the regiment because we're going to war. They're probably going to go to war straight away."
Yep.
So all of us said the same thing, and we all did the next selection we could.
Yeah, right. And because I remember mate, I was 8 years old when the planes flew into the towers, and that day changed the world. And mate, I honestly thought, as a kid, I know it was hard to contemplate what was happening, and you're a little bit older than me, and like straight away thinking that you're going to go to war, and that day did change the world. And I actually thought it was a movie. I'm like, this is a movie. Like it's
unbelievable.
This is unbelievable. And then it wasn't until I saw the people jump out of the windows that I actually went, oh, actually no, this is not a movie. And then when the buildings collapsed, I went, this is real.
Spent a lot of money on that movie.
Yeah, and then so. In 2002, you make the decision to, as you said, now take the step to go to the SAS and try out and to get selected to join the regiment. And in 98, you'd done your selection for the Commandos. How did you mentally and physically prepare for selection in 2002?
I think because I think the time in the Commandos, tempered you for a lot of hard work. So everything they did was hard. Even jumping out of planes was hard. Like everything was of that level because the guys were constantly pushing to build a unit, and a lot of the initial guys that joined the unit were very forward-leaning in terms of making sure that we were the best unit we could be. And so a lot of the Carter staff there, a lot of the senior commando staff there who did the first selections, a lot of those guys were already sergeants in the battalions, and when they came through, they just carried on with what they did, but they were given a much bigger remit. For example, I think that because we were in Bravo Company in 2000, Bravo Company was basically the only company there in the whole battalion. So my understanding was that Bravo Company had a full battalion's allocation of rockets, ammunition, grenades, the whole box and dice. So every live fire exercise we did was DEMs, claymores, grenades, you name it, basically 66s. So we got to use the full gambit, non-stop. Like, it's just unreal. Like, if I thought that if this is the way standard SF training is, then I'm in. This is what I signed up for. And I've since learnt that it was because we had the whole battalion's allocation of bang, that every exercise we did was at that level. So it was like, this is me, further reinforcement that I'm living the dream. And I suspect there's also a bit of a chip on the shoulder because we were still the little brother. We're still basically growing our reputation. Obviously, that reputation is well and truly earned through Afghanistan to this day. But at that point, we had no runs on the board. So we had to basically put our best foot forward when it came to any operation we got, including 2000 Olympics and East Timor. And the guys just continued to build. So it's good to see the formation of where it was, because when we came back from East Timor, we obviously were re-rolled to black roles to take on the domestic CT responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So guys started doing their CQB courses, and the first cohort of guys for RAR Commando to do CQB courses, the courses were done over here in Perth.
Yep.
So when I'd finished my selection course for SAS, basically I was on my Rio with all the guys that I just served with in the Commandos coming over to do their black rolls courses.
I remember when I had Nick on, he said they didn't, and over here, and he was love him or hate him. That you know, a lot of the guys, he was black and white, but he knew the seriousness of the role that they were taking on for Tag East, and it was a big responsibility. And he said the guys over here didn't hold back any punches. He said we got smashed, and it was an absolute, like he said, it was either you keep up or you're gone. Like it's just, and he took that back to, and you know, was part of the development of that going forward and what it's renowned for now. Yeah. And as you say, you're seeing these guys, and how many for you when you did go on selection? How many started and how many finished?
I think there was 160 something who started selection. There's 19 of us. I think it was actually 21 of us finished, 2 didn't get picked up.
Yeah, wow.
So 19 went on to the Rio.
Yep.
I think we lost 1 or 2 throughout the Rio cycle. One of those was because he's a good operator, good guy. He got sick on our survival course and didn't recover from it. So it's a lot of things have to go right for you to finish the course. You could be the most capable and most suitable person, but then you could roll an ankle, or you could get up. Who knows? You know, at the end of the day, so much has to go right to pass one of those courses.
Yep.
But I think that going back to your question about service in the unit, and what was the hardest thing was how did it prepare me for selection? Because we did everything so hard in Commandos, it was just like another course. It was a complete shift from doing the Commando selection being such a big occasion for me. The Carter course was a big occasion, but because it'd been tempered by so much hard work in the Commandos, that it wasn't like a big scary, thing.
Yeah,
that could have been for other people.
Yeah,
right. To me, it was like one thing I needed to get through to go to war, because war had started by that stage, and I knew that this was. I just thought this is a speed bump. Just finish it. Because you want to be in the right unit when war breaks out.
Absolutely.
And the SAS was the place.
So, being that you'd done your parachute qual and all that, because you've come from 4RR Commando, do you still have to go and redo those modules again?
You have to do them all again.
Yeah, right.
Except for para course, basic para. Once you've got that, you've got that. Mm-hmm. But things like CQB or mount courses, all those things, you do it again.
Yep, which you would love great. Anyway, because you're only going to get better at it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that, sweet. I mean, this is what has to be done. I'm not bigger than the army. I'll toe the line because that's what has to be done.
Yep.
And it gives me more reps. So, sweet, I'll take more reps. No worries at all. Yeah.
So was there any part of selection that you thought, I'm in the hurt locker here, or was it just because of the good base and foundation that you'd had with the Commandos, you're okay that you can think back on now from your time going on selection?
No, I can't remember one point during that 21 days where I thought I'm not going to make this. Yeah, it wasn't even on my radar. I remember the last phase, Lucky Dip phase, it was about 3 a.m. in the morning. We probably had about 3 or 4 days to go, and one of the guys in my section at the time, we were just sitting around. We were doing something manual, like digging a trench or digging a pit with our cups canteen or spoons or something.
Yep.
And he goes, Nick, I'm thinking about pulling off. And I said, why? He says, I don't think I'm doing very well. I said, well, how do you know? He goes, well, no, because I said, how do you know? Like, no one's giving you any feedback. Like, no one's telling you you're doing good or bad. Like, you're still here. Like, so many people are not here now. Like, over 3/4 of the course are not here. Like, why don't you just finish the next 3 days? He goes, well, I don't think the DS like me. I said, well, I don't think they like me either. But so, like, I think you don't even register on their radar.
Yep.
Like, you just, the only point you'll start registering on their radar is when you finish it. Then they can put the effort into you. Up to this point, they just want to see who's left. So don't give them that. Like, just be there at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I just, because I knew him, I knew his background. He was from 1RR. He's recon snipers from 1RR. About the same age as me. We both grew up in Queensland. About the same time in the army, but a completely different view on our situation at that point in time. And I just realised then that, okay, sweet, well, you can view this situation from two different perspectives, and that's what's happening right now. You can view it as though I'm not doing very well, or you can say, well, I'm still here. I haven't left yet. I'm still good to go. My body's still good. Let's just see what happens. Just finish it, you know. And his was like, oh, I don't think I'm doing very well. I'm going to pull off. So he didn't last the night. I didn't see him in the morning. They'd gone.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like, you know, you selection courses, you deselect yourself. You just make the staff's job easy by deselecting yourself, because then they can start focusing on the guys who, you know, have the mental navigation skills to actually be there at the end of the day.
Well, I've just finished a podcast with Troy Simmons, and he was talking about that on his when he became a DS and selecting, and he said that's what selection is. We want to play the mind games where we don't talk to you. You get no feedback. You won't be told how you're going, and then, like you've just said, exactly that. They want you to get the guys who are mentally strong at the end to keep pushing to the end, to then go, well, now you're selected, now we can train you, and that's where and it was just a really interesting conversation with him being on that. He said, I remember when I went through selection to then be a DS and it's a totally different mindset of, and he said, you know that the guys, you've been exactly where they were, but now it's roles reversed. You're actually selecting the guys that come through. So it's very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, you're trying to get them to start asking themselves why they're here from day dot, and it's very effective. Selection is very effective at doing that, because there's so many different phases you need to go through as part of the selection course that there's plenty of opportunity to be asking yourself those questions. And you just got to come up with the same consistent, correct, or more appropriate answer every time.
So you finish selection, which to get through any selection, whether you get picked up or not, is an achievement in itself. You do get picked up and said that you're suitable to go on to the reinforcement cycle. And what was that like? Because you'd done Rio for commandos. This is a lot longer to get into the SAS. And was there anything that you struggled with on your Rio that you can remember?
Yeah, well, I guess once again, I think it's because of the preparation we had with commandos, and we were also very lucky because when we came back from Timor, because of a lot of our hierarchy were SAS. When we signalled that we were intended to do Carter course, they basically said, "Okay, I don't want to see you back here. Yeah, do not fail. Take all your time now to train." So I think we got back from Timor and would have been August, October. And they just said, basically gave us leave to train right till the selection course, which was in April.
Yeah, right.
Year. So we basically had all that time to train, and we just trained the house down. So we were very well prepared for that course. That's why basically all the guys from commandos at that stage, especially my patrol, we all passed at the same time, passed together, because we had each other to feed off in terms of pushing each other. We all had our different strengths and weaknesses as well. So by the time we got through, it was like, okay, this is par for the course. This is just work as normal. But we got a whole bunch of new skills, a whole bunch of new insights, a whole bunch more responsibility as well. I think that probably the most challenging, and we used to be restricted from talking about it, was the conduct after capture training. Purely because you're awake for a long period of time and you start hallucinating very quickly, and it's just one of those things. It's more of a psychedelic experience rather than a hard. Whilst it was very hard, at the same time you look back and go, that was awesome. Like that was you want everything in training to be as hard as possible. You want to be pushed to your limits every single time in training, because war was going on at that point in time.
Train hard, fight easy.
Yeah, so the headspace was very much that, where you knew that, well, we hadn't finished, so some of us on the Rio cycle, we'd done most of our insertion courses, and we hadn't done our CQB courses or any of the black roll stuff, but a lot of the guys were flagged to go to one squadron who were basically potentially going to Iraq the following year. So I was very lucky to be told that I was going to one squadron early, and the rest of the guys stayed on to finish the Rio cycle. So we did about 8 months of our Rio.
Yeah, right.
And then we went to one squadron that after Christmas, and we started doing build up for the potential of going into Iraq, which wasn't a foregone conclusion by any stretch. So it's obviously super exciting, super motivating. Everything we did, every course we did, was under this premise that we were going to war, and we were tangibly going to war. So I was like, give me more. Like,
and you're in
load
the
me
prime
up.
seat. You're in the unit that's going to be deployed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like everyone was in the boat of just load me up, just give me whatever you got.
Yep.
And if this is hard, make it harder.
So you talk me through that, because I know a lot of guys have said it, that you pass Rio, you finally get presented that Sandy beret. What was that feeling like for you?
It's great. Obviously, it's one of those things that very few people get to achieve. My parents flew over for it, so it's even better. It's one of those things that, that was a culmination of, 10, 12 years of dreaming, and to live, to be that person. You still don't think you're there. You still don't think that you're an SAS guy. It's still unbelievable.
Yep.
Because you're surrounded by all these animals, all these dudes that there's just, you think, oh, geez, that guy's so much better than me.
Yep.
And what it does is propel me forward to keep working, keep training, don't let off, keep trying to be more professional. And then someone's a better runner than you, you're trying to chase them. Someone's a better climber than you, trying to chase them. Someone's a better fighter than you. So there's always a bigger dog in the room, but that's good because you want that.
You're striving for excellence, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's pushing. It's the right amount of competition. There's a right amount. It's like a hypercritical environment. You're either good or you're really bad. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that you want to be good.
Yep.
You want to be. You're always chasing someone. So it's you get the beret, but you're not there yet. In my head at least, I knew I wasn't there yet.
Yeah,
I still had so much work to do. And I think that's fairly normal. I think that's fairly the average train of thought. Because the unit wouldn't be what it is if someone's not pushing at something and getting better at something. So whilst it was awesome, I knew we still had work to do. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the guys I've spoken to said that's just the first part. Once you pass Rio and you get your beret, that's just the stepping. Because you're constantly, forever being watched and assessed. You never actually. And did you feel that you would never, and it's probably a question that, but did you ever always feel, hey, this could end at any point? No.
I didn't. I'd never had that thought or that feeling. I just my train of thought was that I just had to keep getting better. Like continue to work hard, continue to prove myself. We were going to a squadron which had just been to Afghanistan, and they had just served in Operation Anaconda, which was my understanding, the biggest land battle since since Vietnam. So they were in the hills there, calling in fire, calling calves. They were basically earning their stripes in the mountains around the AO. So I knew that we were going to a squadron of guys who already were pretty tight, very professional, and already been blooded, for want of a better word, effectively. So just propelled me to keep training, to keep working hard, because I knew that you have to earn your place, and it should be that way. There shouldn't be any other way. You've got to earn your place there. So, I mean, we'd get to the squadrons, and if you asked us to clean the bins, empty the bins, we'd empty the bin, clean the bin, so you can eat your cereal out of it. So it's like if you got tasked to clean the floors, you'd go in there and clean it with tweezers if you had to.
Yep.
Like we just wanted to earn our keep, and that was our methodology. We wanted to be able to make contribution, and we also knew that we would get tested very soon. So, and we were under the microscope. If anything stood out, you would have to wear that, and you'd have to carry that forward. So, we put everything into every bit of training we did. I
recently spoke to a tactical police veteran mate of mine from Northern Territory, and he said when he got there as well, it was righto, clean the range, get all the empty shells and put them in the bin, and shut up, and you got to earn your respect here. It's not just because you've passed does not mean that you shut up. And when you're told that you're welcomed, you will be welcome, and same for you. And so you then deploy to your first deployment in 2003 to Iraq. And you'd had your first trip to East Timor. Being Iraq is very different. And what was your role over there, being the SAS over when you deployed in 2003?
So I was a patrol medic for that. We were a free-for-all patrol. So the squadron was fully manned, my understanding is, so A, B and C troop. I was part of A troop. And it was all vehicle mounted. So obviously, if you read anything about Bravo 20, and Bravo 20 served as absolute inspiration for this, because halfway through the war, one of the boys said we were actually going through a lot of the checkpoints that Bravo 20 had gone through, including their insertion point. Mm-hmm. And we saw the actual terrain that they described in terms of being as flat as this jiu-jitsu mat here for miles and miles and miles, thousands of miles.
Yep.
And we realised that it would have been very, very difficult to do any foot patrols in this type of terrain, let alone survive in it, and especially if you got into contact. So there was a lot of lessons from Bravo 20, in fact, utilised, I believe. And a lot of us, I reread the books just to get my head around, get as much information as I could. Mm. And it was as described, at the end of the day. A lot of the terrain there was flat as a billiard table. There's also very mountainous terrain. But where we were operating in the western desert, due west of Baghdad, is very much, minimum vehicle-mounted operations, if not, airborne.
Mm. Yeah. So with that, did you get any notable contacts while you were over there?
Well, I guess because we were A Troop, we were inserted. My understanding is we were the closest to Baghdad for the first 3 days out of all the coalition forces. Mm-hmm. So for the first 6 days, because our QRF was a minimum of 3 hours away, they had to be flown in from a neighbouring country. So we had to keep a very low profile, and it's very much strategic reconnaissance. Mm-hmm. So we were tasked with ensuring that no Scud missiles were launched from the western desert into Israel, because obviously if Israel joined the war, all the other Arab nations that were supporting the coalition would withdraw their support. So it was very strategically important that we did our job and did what we could to stop Scud missiles being launched. To the north of us, I think it was Delta. To the north of them, I believe it was SPS. Mm-hmm. South of us, I think it was 22. So all the Tier 1 units were around us, and we could hear all their contacts. Mm. When we launched into Iraq, we flew in via Chinook, so my whole troop flew in via 6 Chinooks, I think it was. It was great. Basically, tack flying close to the map to ground, through mountains at very low level, 50 to 100 feet, trying to avoid these anti-aircraft discs, radar discs. So very awesome flying through, super exciting in the pitch black night. We did a refuel at night. When we inserted at night. And at the same time, C Troop and B Troop crossed the berm, which I'll speak to, and we'll probably give you some insight into that. And they got into contact straight away. So we listened to the contact reports, the old contact laid out, and then we, further reports, and in the background as they're transmitting, you can hear the 50 cal going off, something like that, and we go, sweet. But we're in the desert and we're trying to maintain a low profile. So from that point, B and C Troop basically took off from where they launched from, where they crossed the berm, and their goal was to marry up with us. I think it was within 6 days. Up to that point, they were in contact probably every second day.
Yeah, wow.
Which is awesome. We're still hearing all this and trying to maintain low profile. And by the time the squadron had married up, I think B Troop had fired their first, or maybe a couple of javelins. Saw some footage and some photos of some of the contacts that they'd just been through. And so we were tasked to do our first DA on a major installation, and A Troop took the lead in terms of the assault troop for that. So that was our first contact in terms of a DA being a deliberate action, or could say it was an EA, because we basically rolled straight onto the target. B and C Troop took on cut-off positions, and we rolled straight in. But by design, our OC had planned it that we'd rolled in when they were doing prayers. So we rocked up in there, and a lot of them were in the mosque, other were in other parts of the building of the installation. There was probably, I don't know, it was a fairly decent outpost. It's probably about 6 or 7 2-story buildings in the compound.
Yeah, right.
And so when we rocked up into the driveway, we all had our different areas of responsibility. My patrol, we took off, and we ended up in what was basically an auto workshop where they did a lot of repairs for their vehicles. And I can't remember which patrol it was, but they rocked straight into the mosque. And in the mosque, there was about 150 to 200 Iraqis at prayers.
Oh, wow.
We were so deep in Iraq by that stage that I thought that they didn't think we'd be here. So we rocked in out of the desert right on sunrise, as they were saying their prayers, and I don't think a shot was fired.
Wow. Yeah, and that's true. That's what you guys are there to do. That's what you do.
So come out of nowhere and do our thing and be very efficient on it.
Yeah,
with it.
Right.
While that was going on, a couple of things happened out where the cut-off positions were, and I think they interdicted basically a tip truck full of armament fire, guns and whatever, and I was on his way into Baghdad to basically restock the next phase of the Al Qaeda's plans.
Yeah, right.
So it was that was our first contact, being in contact with the enemy, taking 150 prisoners. It was awesome. Going through your first door, going through your first into a building, and your first contact. My train of thought leading into that was, what's the most appropriate thing to do as a new guy in the patrol? Well, if you get the opportunity to go through the door first, be the first through the door, don't shy away from it and go hard at it. So I got that opportunity, thankfully. It's not because we jockeyed to get to there, it just ended up that I was there. And it was like, sweet, here I am. And it's one of those things, as soon as I broke the line of that door, I knew that straight away. My 2IC was directly on my shoulder. We went in straight into a hallway, and he was basically not pushing me, but I could feel his forearm on my shoulder and his muzzle over my shoulder.
Yep.
But I could feel the aggression behind him. It's like, sweet, don't want to be anywhere else in the world right now than right here.
You're living your dream, mate.
Living the dream.
Yeah, what you wanted to do, and for that too, that in itself is the adrenaline's there, because there's fear as well going, you don't know what's on the other side, and they call it, I know, the fatal funnel in that sense, but right at that time, you've got the support of your 2ICs behind you, and you're in the grand final, you're about, like, this is what you're living your dream, and you do, like, you take 150, prisoners, like, that's just awesome.
Yeah, you also know that if you get hit, depending on where I get hit, I'll know what I need to do. So it's like, well, I've thought about going through the door. We practiced this many times. This is the culmination of all these years I've been thinking about this thing. I'm not that I'm thinking that in the time. I'm just thinking about doing the job. But you also know that if this is a calculated risk going through this door. If I got shot, make sure I give my plate. I've got my helmet, got my Kevlar. I've got to make sure that as soon as I see something that needs to be shot, I shoot it. But also, if I get shot, it'll depend on where I got shot. Then I'll start to get worried. Then I know there's guys behind me. I've got tourniquets in the right positions. I know that they've got the right equipment to stop bleeds or whatever it is.
Yep.
So it's a calculated risk, but because you have a full understanding of what you're going into. It's not just this mindless bravado that you think, I cannot be shot. I'm a commando taking on 1,000 men. It's not that case at all. It's a calculated risk. Do I back myself based on all this risk? Yes, I do. And I back the guys behind me because they're backing me. Right, let's do this.
Yeah. So and as you say, that's why you train. That's why you push it to that. You push it to that extreme. As you said, you train hard, so you fight easy. That happens. And because how long was that deployment? How long are you over there for?
I think we were in country 42 days.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the build-up was a few weeks. I think it might have been 2 months or something. In fact, the build-up was harder than the war. It's like, can we just get over this build-up stuff and just go to war?
So that happens, mate. You come back, and that's you live in the dream. So you've had, now you got 2 deployments under your belt, and when you first joined, like, as and when you joined too, it's good to highlight that you joined in peacetime too. So now it's starting to ramp up. Everything's starting to get, like, the wars of Afghanistan's, kicked off. Then it stalled because you're now in Iraq, but then Afghanistan kicks back up again in 2005. You're starting to get busy, but then in 2004, you rotate onto team. And what was that like, being that you'd been, because was that your first time on team? So what was that like for you?
Once again, like, you see the Prince's Gate, you look at that, go, wow, wouldn't that be awesome? As a kid, and now you're doing it. And because you've been to war, there's not a complacency, there's more reality, because you understand, okay, this is what it's like, so I've got to take this really seriously. I'm not infallible. Whilst the deployment to Iraq, I think the squadron recorded about 26 significant contacts out of 42 days. So if you do the numbers, about every second day that some element of the squadron was in contact, but we didn't even have from my understanding, we didn't even have a sprained ankle. Yeah, we had a lot of vehicles took a lot of damage, but we just had a touch wood, a clean run. But we also saw the damage that we inflicted, and if it was on the other foot, then that's how bad it could be. So we understood that. I had at least more of an understanding of what my job was and the ins and outs of my job. So when it came time to do to be sniper on team, it was like, I'm a sniper on team. Like, how much better can this be? You know?
Yeah.
So it's like your every range practice as a sniper was just a boys' trip, honing your craft, competing against other really good snipers, and learning from the more experienced snipers the ins and outs of your jobs, and then having the responsibility. Every exercise you did was like, if we, for example, had to take down a plane, a domestic airliner or an international airliner, the whole world's going to be watching. So we've got to come up, with the goods whenever, and it's never going to be at a time of our choosing, never going to be on ground of our choosing, never going to be when we're at the top of our game. We just got to get it done and do it to the highest level. So just being around that atmosphere, being around the guys at that level of professionalism was like,
well, don't you want to keep...
I just want to keep going.
Yeah,
keep
right.
Yeah.
And for that to very busy year, like even I know I've spoken to a lot of guys and they said just because you're not fighting wars, it's a very busy time as well. So you would have been like constantly training, rehearsing, doing all that sort of stuff, and so it's not really I'm on team now, I can relax. It was still a busy year for you too.
I mean, it's all hard work. I mean, that's the thing. It's nothing sexy really about it. It's all grind. Like you've just got to get on. It's just the jobs you're doing is cool. It's fun. But it's still hard work. You're doing a lot of reverse cycle work as a sniper. You're spending a lot of time awake just watching something. If you miss something, then that's on you.
Yep.
So you got to make sure you're watching as attentively as possible. And you're developing skills to stay awake. If you don't have an oppo with you because you're so short of staff or whatever, then or you can only get one person in the OP or whatever, then you've got to be you. And if you're awake 48 hours, you've got to be awake 48 hours. So, and then you've got to hit something. If it pops up, you've got to be ready. So they give you the green light. Then you've got to hit it. So it's one of those things that it's not, and that sounds cool, but it's still hard work. It is cool, really. It's still hard work. So yes, I mean it's hard work, but it's still living the dream. Like you're still doing the stuff that you that I dreamt about.
Yeah, as a kid. Yeah,
and it's still more dreams that I hadn't fulfilled yet. You know what I mean? So I was a free faller, which I wanted to be a free faller. I was a sniper. I wanted to be a sniper. I was an MOE guy, so breacher. So, doing all the cool stuff with breaching. I was a medic as well. I wanted to be a medic. So I was living the dream.
Yep.
And being on team was just like, okay, can this get any better? So, and it just kept getting better. And
then in 2005, mate, you go to the School of Languages. And what was the decision to go and do that? Yeah, well, I had, as I was working on team, I was starting to get fatigued. Obviously, a lot of guys, you're working hard, you're doing a lot of reverse cycle work, so you're spending a lot of time awake at night and sleeping during the day. And it's one of those things where you start to build fatigue, and everyone's tired because you're always working. And then for a lot of guys, when you go home, it's not like, when you go home, it's not like you can, chill out. You've got to do the family thing and everything like that. I didn't have a family, so I'd met my girlfriend, which is my future wife at that stage. But I was starting to get super fatigued, and I started to, you'd ask the guys around you, hey, I'm feeling real tired. Are you guys tired? And you go, yeah, man, I'm tired. Like, everyone's tired. It's just like normal. Okay, this must be normal to be this tired. So I'd be going home on weekends and not doing anything. I'd basically stay in bed, like just trying to catch it, recuperate from the week's work. And it started getting worse and worse. And it got to the point where we actually started doing a night jumping serial, so just a free-fall serial. We started with daytime jumps, and we were just asked by our troop sergeant going around the room, okay, what's the malfunction drill for this, and what's the malfunction drill for that? And when it got to me, it's like something I'd done, I don't know, probably a couple hundred jumps by that stage, and I could not for the life of me remember the basic malfunction drill for a line over. And it's in my head, and then one of the guys stepped in for me, and then I just go, hang on a sec, why am I forgetting this? And that was the start where I thought, okay, this is starting to affect my work. And then we did a serial where, as the breacher, we were doing some roping work down at the embassy up here at Bindoon. We were hanging over the side of the building, and we were on the walls, and we were waiting for the go from the AC. And we were probably waiting for about 5 minutes. I literally fell asleep on the rope with an explosive charge in my hand. Oh, wow.
And I was woken up by the breachers on the other walls detonating their charges on their windows. And that woke me up. I missed the go entirely. So as soon as we came down from that serial, I went to my patrol commander and said, mate, I need some time. And he goes, yeah, I noticed. What's going on? I said, I'm really tired. I need to work something out. And it got to the point where I would have to take, like Mondays, I'd call in sick because I just did not recover. And then I started getting migraines, and the migraines would last for weeks and weeks, days and days. And it's just like, I got to do something here. So the OC is super supportive. The SSM was super supportive. Everyone, in fact, in the chain. In fact, the OC is one of my business partners here. They said, do whatever you need, just get it fixed, sort it out. And they put me on a Langs course. So basically, I went to School of Langs and studied Indonesian.
And for that, as you say, mate, you're living the dream, and to know that something's not right, that would have been like, that's soul shattering. And we're going to get further on down in the podcast of what actually happened and led to your discharge, unfortunately, with the chronic fatigue. But at that point, as you say, you are keen, you're green, you're loving, you're just constantly trying to. So that would have been tough to then your body, not you had enough of the job, your body let you down in your dream job. Yeah,
I mean, it was the worst thing that could have happened to me, for sure. Living the dream, doing exactly the thing that you've thought about for decades or more, and then not being able to do even the most basic elements of it. And in fact, not just being dangerous to the enemy this time, being dangerous to your own team and yourself. So it's like, okay, I've got to make the call. When I made the call, everyone was very supportive of it and they visited me. Like literally, I had to go. I spent I think it was 3 to 4 months in bed. I'd sleep for 23 hours. I'd move to the couch for another hour, just to sleep somewhere else for an hour. I was with my now wife. I'd met her and she saw the rapid degradation. But the boys had come and visit. But you still, at that point, I didn't want to see them. I didn't want them to see me as I was at that point, not what I envisaged, the person I envisaged myself to be, and definitely not up to the standard that they were, and they were currently doing the job. So it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me at that point. But I still had perspective. Like I still believe that
you could get back.
I'll get back.
Yep.
Yeah. This is just another speed bump. It's just a different speed bump. I just got to get over it.
And in that time, like, as you said, you did Indonesian, and was that would have been like you obviously threw yourself into it, but that would have been a kick in the guts because your mates. You 1 minute you're doing the job that you love, and then did you still throw yourself into the language course? Yeah,
I mean, I had a passion for languages anyway. So at university, I studied Japanese, French, and Indonesian. I did Indonesian and French throughout high school. So by the time I got to that point, I was fluent in Japanese and French. So Indonesian, I was probably an intermediate level. So by the time I finished the School of Langs, I was at a level 2 level. So
yeah, right.
So I just believed because my contingency was to become James Bond. Speaking multiple languages was the norm.
Yep.
And I got to use Indonesian because I studied at uni in Timor. So I was a very, very, in fact, because I surf, go to Bali twice a year, so I still get a chance to practice my Indonesian. And compared to Japanese and French, it was actually a relatively easy language to pick up. And I knew that, potentially, because our regionally speaking, Indonesia was a big player, and we'd done a lot of exchange work with Indonesians at various times throughout the unit's history. So there was always the potential for utilising the language.
Yep.
And I had a passion for languages, so I was like, okay, I'll take this. Yeah, I'll you give it to me, I'll do it as hard as I can.
And with that, because with your chronic fatigue, was there times where that language course was hard, or because you were fluent in it, even though with your chronic fatigue, were there times where you were struggling even with to keep up with the School of Langs?
No, not with the learning. The class hours, as in doing a 6 to 8 hour day, was like I need to go have a nap during lunchtime.
Yep.
Yeah, if we had a mornings, I'd go have a nap. So I had a swag set up there's a little computer, like a server room.
Yep.
Put the earplugs in, put the blindfold on, just nap.
Yep.
And that kept us like a level of stasis for 6 months, basically. And they were very flexible because I was relatively competent at it. So I had this, if I called in sick, I called in sick. They were like, yeah, get it, no worries, all right. If you come in tomorrow, see you tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay.
it was good. Like my whole time there, even the guys still coming up to the school of Langs and visiting. Like I didn't want to see them. Literally, I tried to avoid them when they came up.
Yeah.
And when I look back and I go, I really appreciate what they were trying to do, just to keep tabs on what I was doing, but I just could not. Couldn't do it.
Understandably, yeah. And did they, like, medically wise, when you were diagnosed with chronic fatigue, you have to change your diet and, like, because is there a lot of like, obviously now we know a lot more about chronic fatigue, but back then when you were diagnosed, was there much that you knew about chronic fatigue?
No one knew anything.
Yeah, right.
So I had to see a specialist from Sydney, and obviously in Perth. So they actually, I think my understanding is she was either flying over as part of what she was doing, or the unit invited her over, or something. I don't know. But I was like, when I got to speak to her, she said, "Well, you have to be at least from the moment you report being fatigued to 6 months. That's when we start diagnosing you with chronic fatigue, because it could be something to do with some virus or something like that."
Mm-hmm.
So there was a precedent. There was 2 precedents already in the unit. One of the guys in my troop actually had only just left the troop. He got diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and my understanding from the day I left the unit was he'd put on about 30 or 40 kilos and still being cared for by his parents. So it was like, okay, like that there was already a precedence. There was another guy who was actually posted to Langs as well, who suffered from cerebral malaria.
Mm-hmm.
So he had chronic fatigue as a result of malaria. So both those guys are like, okay, it's a thing. All the guys pretty tired, but they manage it. Just so I couldn't manage it. Like I literally had to, take time out and try work out a way to get around it. So it changed everything. Like it literally changed the way because my perception was, if I've got a spare moment, I'll train. Yeah, and what I learned from that whole process is that my brain will push my body rather than my body saying it's time to quit. My brain will tell my body when it's time to quit. And I think that's a good thing for selection, but it's not a good thing when you're trying to get through an illness or an injury or something like this, which is so, it's such a new condition that there's not enough information about it. So you've got to feel your way through it and try and do it as logically and as reasonably as you possibly can. Not bully yourself, because I can bully myself to do anything, even though my body's not up for it. And that's where I fell over.
Episode 90, I had a good friend of mine, Joanna Griggs, on, and she was an Olympic swimmer. She had the same thing where she went from training, 16 hours a day to then 16 hours of recovery, like getting in bed and out of bed and trying to change the whole way. And she did come back a couple of times, but then eventually she actually had to give away the sport. So it's interesting hearing it from another and from a different perspective of being an Olympian to, well, basically you're an Olympian, you're an elite, you're basically an elite. You're at the elite level in the military, and she said the same thing. It was debilitating because you're going from doing what you love to then there's no energy. You can't. You're sleeping. You're nothing.
Yeah,
so
negative.
And that for you, as you say, is debilitating because your mates, they're still doing the job. They want to see you, and you're trying to get back. And this is just your body saying, "Hey, Nick, stop. I need you to recover," and that's very hard, especially from the mindset of where you were. And it took time.
Took a lot of time. Yeah. So actually, a side note, Alistair Lynch had also gone through the same thing. So he was the Brisbane Bears captain back in the day. So I read his book, but it didn't give me any insight into it. Now I don't know where he is right now, and I don't know where Joanna Griggs is right now. But where I am right now is the basis of the lifestyle that we've had to create for ourselves to ensure that I can maintain a semblance of normality. But yeah, back then it was still still so much uncertainty, and still bullying myself to say, look, just get over it, and get on with it. You've got to get back to it. But just not being able to do it was like just the worst.
Oh, and because as you say now, you're here like the squadrons are over in Afghanistan. They're doing the job. They're warfighting. You want to be there, and how is this going forward with your military career? Because I know, like going through your bio, in 2006, you did get back to go on PSD mission, PSD missions over to Timor. And How was the unit around that? And like, because now you've got this condition, how you get medically downgraded that you can't deploy, and what was the support around for you then?
Well, the unit's so busy that they don't have time to think about everyone's individual case. So I understood that. Like, it was really up to me to get myself squared away. So that was fine. Like, no worries. They gave me the time to do it, which is great. So, yeah, and even part of then, because after the 6-month course, I went on to be the language coordinator out of the School of Langs. Mm-hmm. So as being part of OSS, Operational Support Squadron, the hierarchy there were very supportive as well, because obviously I was fulfilling a job which was required to be done. But I was still working towards getting back to scratch, and it was 2006. I believed that I'd reached some level where I could actually go back and do the job. Obviously, I was off the tools for over a year by that stage. So, in terms of my skills, where the guys were, there was absolutely going to be a disparity. So I had to do a lot of work to try and get up to a level of parity. Mm-hmm. But they were so busy and so short to do is that as soon as I said, "Look, I think I'm good to go," they said, "Sweet, okay, you're going to 2 Squadron." Okay, sweet. Okay, 2 Squadrons going to East Timor. Okay, sweet. Okay, let's do it. So I went into G Troop 2 Squadron. My PC was MOF, and it was great. Probably the best. And once again, just blessed to go into that troop, especially into that patrol with MOF, and that Timor-Leste deployment in 06 was for the first probably 6 days was awesome. It was full on. It was effectively, breaking up riots and breaking up mobs, So it was trying to stop the whole town of Dili from burning down. And it was exciting, but I knew that I could just feel myself getting tighter and tighter. So when everything started to calm down, the rest of the ADF moved in, we started to have to find work to do, because that was like, okay, our job has been done here to a large extent. So it was very much low tempo ops from then. I was like, sweet, I can manage this and try and build up from this. So we still had a lot to do. We still had a lot of time out in the hills trying to build relationships and get information. We spent a stint up in a small town in the hills, in the mountains called Malbisi, and we spent a lot of time, about 6 weeks, with a guy called Alfredo Renato.
Yep.
And I think we were the first patrol up there. My understanding is we were the first patrol to take care of that, to basically babysit him and his 30 fully armed guys who had just been in contact with whatever other. I think they got in contact. They were the Navy, so they got in contact with the police and they ended up killing each other anyway. It's a while ago, but there was a lot of heat going down, so we went up there to babysit him, and one of the first things he said to them off was, as we were having dinner one night, very civilised, around the table, he said, "Oh, yeah, I understand that at any moment in time you guys may be required to arrest me." And Moff goes, "Yeah, that's a possibility." And Alfredo goes, "Just no, we're not going to go without a fight." And he's got 30 guys with him, all armed. And here's us 6 guys. And we go, okay, all right, this could be interesting. But thankfully, we never got that call.
Yep.
Obviously, that call was made after we had left a few months later. But that was also interesting. Spending a lot of time, it was like this uneasy yet easy relationship building phase where we trained, did PT with them. We did some self-defense stuff, unarmed combat stuff with them. We ate together every meal, played cricket with them.
I was going to say, Moff, previous guest, episode 49, and his famous cricket bats and Alfredo's signature on one of the bats.
Yeah, so. It was a lot of fun. It was good times up there. And then we rotated out of that and we did some regional work, and then that was it. We came back. And obviously after that, I think it might have been 1 squadron, got tasked with bringing Alfredo in, and there was a few interesting trips out of that one. So
for you to get back to, as you say, you felt that you'd done some work to get back, and then you started to feel tired. Did you think, I'm all right, I've just got to, I can still maintain this, or what was happening at that point?
Yeah, I could see progress from what I was, like literally having 23 hours in bed and still not being able to open my eyes and still not feeling any level of recovery. I could see the progression. I knew what I needed to do in terms of, like, I was wearing a heart rate monitor at that point in time. It was probably the most effective tool I had at that point in terms of managing exertion levels. Also knew how to down-regulate a lot better in terms of high levels of arousal when they weren't required, bringing myself down to a sustainable level where I can take more information in.
Yep.
I was much better at sleeping. Sleeping was a skill that I learnt during that phase. It was news to me that you could actually train yourself to sleep through conscious effort during the day. And what you said to yourself before you went to sleep and how you set up your sleeping environment. In fact, in Timor, I had some of the best sleeps beside the airfield, having planes coming in and out.
Yeah, right.
In a hammock. Yeah, so and in fact, it got to the point where the SSM was going, get Nick out of bed. He shouldn't be sleeping this long. so besides getting a haircut and any other things but it was one of those things that I learnt that sleep is a skill that you can develop, and I sleep better now than I had in my entire life.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, there's a lot of good things came out of that. Also, this understanding that I'd passed 2 selections. I'd been to war. I'd done some pretty cool stuff in the unit, done things that many other people haven't done in the civil or in the civilian world. That I can certainly go become this. This is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and probably won't ever be the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So treat it accordingly.
Yep.
So I was always optimistic that I would come back to full level. So I fought to get medically upgraded. So if I did have to discharge, I had the opportunity to come back once I was up to full bottle. So, but all the deployments I'd done, including all the PSDs I'd done after coming back from Timor, were on a waiver. And it got to the point where whatever the governing body is, Defence for medical waivers, was said that's enough waivers. He's got to get upgraded, and so I had to basically spend more time in the office than ever. Yeah.
And at that point, you were starting to understand this condition a little bit better, starting to understand your body. Did you think that you were a real shot at getting medically upgraded again to deploy?
There was no template, so there's too much uncertainty around it. So I used one of the examples that was an A troop before me. My understanding was that he never recovered from it. And so I thought that was always, and reading the book on Alistair Lynch, he still hadn't recovered from it. So there's still always in the back of my head that this may be it, like this may be it for the rest of your life. But I before I joined the Army, I said I'd do 10 years in Special Forces or 10 years in the Army, and because my goal was to be a dad, basically to start a family and be a dad. And so I knew that I needed to have some level of agency when I left the Army to be able to, 1, be a dad, but 2, work for who I wanted, when I wanted, if I wanted. So in 99, with 2 of my commando mates, we started saving up and buying houses. So with our Timor money from that first trip in 2001, we bought a couple of houses out of that, and we just kept buying houses through that period. So I was always, I think that was part of the undoing as well, because when we'd come back from work, if I couldn't sleep, I'd just go and study houses. My laptop was full of spreadsheets.
Your brain wouldn't switch off.
So I wouldn't switch off. So I thought, well, I'm setting myself up for the next horizon whilst I'm doing the current work as it was. And I'm grateful I did that work, obviously, because it set me up. I didn't get any remuneration from the military when I left. I didn't get any pension because we had enough cash, we had enough assets behind us that I could go do whatever I wanted within reason. And I still had to work on the property side of it. So I knew that was always in the back of my head that if I didn't come good, what was Plan B? Well, Plan B used to be James Bond.
Yeah.
Now it's I don't know, Kerry Stokes. I don't know.
Well, your dad had instilled that in you from a young age of, well, you need a Plan B, and as you say, so as you said, and we'll get to that in a minute, you discharge, you have got the Plan B now, and we'll talk about the entrepreneurship going forward, because that's something that I love myself, and I actually want to talk about that and the mindset of that. But I just want to go back a little bit to the regiment of, this is where you're starting to lose guys. So Fiji, you lost Josh Porter. 2007, you lost Matty Locke. So these are starting, like, these guys you know in the regiment. What effect is that having on you?
One, it's you're not there. Like you feel this level of guilt, which is it is what it is at the time. I knew those guys. I didn't know those guys because I'd done 2 years, so 2003, 2004 in the unit. And most of my world was 1 squadron. And that stage, I'd only met Matt and Dids when I was on the RAR cycle, basically. And actually, I knew Matt when he was at MREC 4 in the SAS when we were in Timor, in East Timor, I just saw this dude who was super fit. I thought, that's an SAS guy. That's what I want to be. And you see him doing PT around the base, and there's this like ripped like weapon rocking around. You go, that's what an SAS guy is in my head. So Matt was one of those guys. Did the same thing. He was a big personality. Everyone knew him. Everyone liked him. He was a very professional guy, very laid back guy, but super hyper professional. So you knew that these are the guys you look up to, because those were my first impressions of what these were the instructors on their courses. These are the guys that you know. So I knew those guys. I absolutely respected those guys, but because I called it in 2002 in terms of not being an operator anymore. So it was a massive loss to the unit, and it didn't have the same impact on me because I wasn't involved with them on a day-to-day basis. I'd been out of the basically out of the fight or out of the cycle for a while. I think the loss that made the most impact on me was Brett Wood. Obviously, I'd known Brett Wood, and we were mates back in the early days of the Commandos. So I knew him very well. We spent a lot of time together, both in the job and whatever else, and that was probably the worst impact on me. Yeah, and the other guys, I did go to the funerals. I remember going to Did's funeral. I remember the big turnout that was there as well. But I was very much in the peripherals for a lot of that, because I wasn't with those guys when they were overseas, especially when Dids or Matt lost his life.
Well, I know myself. Like I'm good friends with Dids' sister, so Sian. I actually spoke to her just before I came in to do the podcast with you, and it's. Yeah, and you speak to so many guys who knew Dids and said that, and getting awarded a medal for gallantry on, basically saying on me, and when he was killed, and that's what he was awarded his medal for gallantry for, that's leadership in every sense of the word. And these guys are, and I spoke to, Nick about it as well with Brett, and he said the ultimate professional Brett was, and just the way he went about business, and he was just the ultimate and recently I spoke to Little Berg, so Craig Hamburger, and he was his 2IC, and he just said he was the ultimate professional in how Brett would do the job, and just the ability that he had to do the job but also lead and let you do the job, and you were mates with him, so you know exactly what he was like as well.
Yeah, very laid back, very easy yarn. When he said stuff, he meant it. And you listened to what he said. Even back then as privates in the Commandos, you'd see where we were all super green. He was super green, and he loved it. He lived it and breathed it. Yeah.
And it's the world, mate, unfortunately, it's a sadder place that these guys aren't here. Like, and the old, as you know, mate, the old saying is the good die young. Well, they do, and in this case,
that way.
Yeah. And so and getting back, and I just wanted to touch on that because I know how much some of these guys meant to you, and I wanted to bring that in. And in 2008, you make the decision to discharge, and hardest decision probably of your life because you're living the dream, and it's basically it's not that you're not loving the job, it's your body, this condition has let you down doing your dream job.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got no control. Oh, well, I had no control over it. So I had to take whatever control I can, because that's all you can do, and do the best with what you've got. And that's it. At the end of the day, life is life. It's it's not always going to be the way you want it to be, the way you dream of it to be, no matter how long you've dreamed it to be that way. It is what it is, and you got to take it as it comes. And it's one of those things. I mean, even the loss of losing those guys and losing Brett especially is one of those things where you just say to yourself, well, what would they have wanted for us, given the opportunity to keep living? And that is like just keep leaning forward, keep going hard. Every opportunity you get, grab it by the horns and wring the life out of it. And that's always been my headspace. It's always been. I think that's what got me through my life in the military. Like, I think it's one of those things now the fight is different. The fight is internal. The fight is managing this, but also, if you're going to go all in and being a husband and a father, then you've got to come up with the goods. So you've got to make this situation, no matter how bad it is, you've got to make it work. And it's up to you to make it work. So for you at that point, you had that mindset. You weren't kicking the can down the road and going, poor me, I'm now out of the military, and
for you, it is a big loss because it's 12 years of your life. This is all you've known. How did you flick that mindset to then go, well, what is plan B and starting the mill? Like, where did that come from?
So the mill, I was actually planning to leave the army and go back to Queensland and start doing my builder's ticket. So my goal was to get a trade when I left and get my builder's ticket. And I moved to Sunshine Coast so I could surf and build houses. That was the dream. I still love shooting, so obviously Queensland's got good gun laws, so go there and just keep shooting.
Yeah.
And still doing jiu-jitsu, all those things that I loved in the army. It's not because I did it because of the army, it's because that's my lifestyle. I've been doing martial arts since I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to continue doing that. And then as I was getting out, my Kiwi mate, Joe Hortai, he's done a couple of podcasts, and he's actually had his own podcast for a while. He'd come over from the New Zealand group, and he joined the Commandos, and that's where I'd met him, and we did selection together, and we served together overseas. And he said, Nick, I've just gone to this gym called Jim Jones in the States, and it was a big thing within the SF community because Jim Jones basically was started by Mark Twight, who's a world record holding mountaineer, and he's like a very well-respected mountaineer, and he started a gym which is the principles that were built on the requirement rather than the aesthetics. So the SF, because of all the wars that were going on at that point in time, a lot of SF units picked up on that, and they started getting Mark Twight to come in and speak to them. And so when Joe went over there and trained with him, he said, I want to start a Jim Jones type gym here. And he said, do you want to chip in? I said, yeah, no worries, I'll chip in, but I'm still going back to Queensland. He goes, no worries, I just look for investors. So anyway, I helped him set that up and start setting it up. And it took a lot of time, and we didn't make any money because, at the end of the day, it's the worst business model in the world. You've got this process where people have to jump through all these hoops to actually qualify to become members, rather than just taking anyone as they come. So we had 11 people try out to become members of this gym in the first 11 months, or 14 months actually. Very slow going, and only 2 people passed. So it's like, well, 3 people passed. One said, it's a good challenge, thanks, I passed, but I've got to now go back to where he is in state. Those 2 members are still members to this day. They still train more or less here, which is good. I was best man at one of their weddings about 6-7 years ago. So there's good relationships, and the reason why they joined and stuck around is because we didn't alter from what we had stated at the start, and this is the standard to get in. This is what you need to do, and if we ever relented on that, then we straight away would lose credibility in their eyes anyway. And because more and more people passed on that understanding, then it sort of started to build its own momentum. So it did take us quite a few years. It took us about 5-7 years to make money. But when we finally got to the point where we were making money, it was like, okay, it's still the worst business model in the world, but at least it's viable. Yeah, and we just continued on with that. It's actually set the tone for my lifestyle, set the tone for the ability to manage everything, manage chronic fatigue, manage work, manage businesses, because you start the day training, you start the day doing something, and you're hanging around with people who think the same way. It's very much the same way in the unit. Now, you get selected for effectively your mindset and your philosophy. So we're trying to select people for their mindset and their philosophy, and you don't have to be a professional soldier to have that same mindset. So that's what we learnt over the process of this now 16, 17 years since we started this place. And about 3 years ago we decided we were going to start one in Brizzy as well. So.
And I've been up there and been lucky enough to do a session, and it was torture, it was hell, but it was great thanks to Slats and one of your other guys up there who got us in touch to do the podcast. And do you have first responder guys come and join the mill as well, or is it mainly just a lot of the ADF sort of that community? Or?
No, it's mainly civilians. So it's mainly I think we've got 5 guys doing selection next month. We've got 6 guys in training, and that's out of 100 members. So we've got a few people obviously online doing our programs and that, but in terms of physical members here, it's a 100-member cap, and the vast majority are not military. Might have been 4 military, but the vast majority of people just live in the local area.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And for you, it's great to see that you got guys and gals that are going to selection, and they come to you not just for not just for the physical side, but the mental side as well. And I know that I've spoken to Slats about it a lot, and he said, yeah, we've got a young kid up there that is going for selection, and it's great to have that advice that you didn't, you had to seek it back in the day of you had to read books. Now these people can come to you and be like sponges and say, well, Nick, I'm struggling here. How do I get that part of to get through selection? That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I think the way we thought about it was what would we have liked to have had when we started on this journey to give us the best possible chance of passing. It's not going to make it easy. Obviously, selection is selection. It's hard no matter what way you look at it. But your ability to process the information is a lot better if you have more clarity in terms of what you're there for, what the purpose of this whole thing is about, and what I need to do to meet the requirement, and how fit I need to be. Because at the end of the day, people have an unrealistic understanding, by and large, of how fit they are based on how fit they need to be. The understanding of selection is they come up short because they've never done anything of that level of intensity and that level of difficulty before in their life. So it's very hard to gauge where they need to be. And unfortunately, some of them become delusional about where they actually sit. Selection is unbelievably hard for a civilian because there's no precedence. When you look at some of the weights that the guys are carrying during selection, you're carrying up to 130, 150 kilograms per man based on what it is that you as a team have to carry. And you're carrying that for miles on end, hours and hours and hours on end. Then you'll swap over to a different bit of kit and now carry that for another, 10 miles. So it's like no one has that because there's no precedence for a lot of people. So to be able to say, okay, well, if people ask me if they're ready, it's like, okay, well, you do this, this, and this because this is what other operators have done and they've done the job. Then it's more of a metric than saying, I think that if you just do that, you're fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we started courses or little camps where they get a dose of it and they get to take the learnings out of that to apply it to the next exposure. And it's the reason why, you probably have success in selection go up if you do, on your second or third selection because you get an understanding of what is actually required and how you actually sit or how you actually perform against that standard. So if we can replicate certain situations within selection, it gives them a better understanding. So by the time they get there, they have a more of a realistic understanding. It's not so much of a culture shock, where the culture shock is the first 3 days you just start thinking, I wasn't prepared for how intense this is. Or if you do something as intense previously, then you will be.
And I think too, it's what you've just said is a great presec for life. Like anything that is worth. Like any success comes through hard work. There's no other, there's these pyramid schemes and you see all these things on social media and that, but any success that I've ever got, mate, has been through hard work. Like writing a book, like as I said to you when we started the podcast off air, mate, 11 years ago I was standing on the edge of a cliff wanting to end my life and I've done full circle and turned my life around. It's been through hard work and, having ADHD with learning difficulties and told that I'd never amount to anything. It was hard bloody work that got me to be a published author. Same as the podcast, mate. It's been hard work and it's a great presec for life that anything that is worth chasing and any success comes through hard work. There's nothing else there's no other way to do it than hard work.
Yeah, I mean, the benefits of that journey shouldn't be underestimated as well. Even if you don't achieve that end state that you've striven for, because the actual journey itself, in terms of the knocks and the losses and everything else that you take along the way, and what you learn from that is what builds character. So I mean, if I think that the most important job on the planet is to be a father. And secondly, to be a good husband. Like if you take those jobs seriously, then you need to be a person of character, which means you have to welcome every challenge, no matter how ugly or no matter how brutal it is. You welcome it. You welcome it with open arms, and the statement should be, well, is that all you got? Like, this is hard right now, but I can take more. It's got to be. You have to embrace everything about that challenge, because not everything's going to turn out the way you want it to.
No. And
you've just got to keep going because life is hard.
And for you on that, being that, the entrepreneur mindset, which is what I want to get into now, is because you've gone on and opened successful other businesses as well. That's something that I'd love to explore, because do you just take the same mindset of when you're a soldier into being an entrepreneur?
I did, yeah. I took that same mindset to how I chose my life partner for my life. It's like I wanted someone, because I just figured everything was going to be war. Everything was going to be battle. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be not necessarily everyone, shooting at you. But you still have your competitors, you still have your knockers, you still have the people who don't want you to do well. You still have the people who would celebrate your failures or use your failures to help motivate them. You know what I mean? So, but you need to have a good team around you, and that should primarily be your life partner, your wife, because you're going to build an environment for your kids, and you want that environment to be the environment that now enables them to thrive. So I just figured that I want a female version of my patrol mates, and someone who could stand. Back in the day when you had to defend your villages from another raiding clan, your wife would be with you, standing beside you, shoulder to shoulder. So that was my methodology for picking my partner, and she's one of the fittest people in this gym. Yeah, right. So it's one of those things that you want. I use that methodology, that philosophy to choose every person I surround myself with. But I've also got to be the Matt Locks and the Dids, that example of the person who this person's worthy of me following. Which means you've got to make hard decisions, which means you're not always going to make friends, and we've certainly made some enemies. I've certainly made some enemies through my time. But I still back my decisions. Like, you still have to, right or wrong, good or bad, you still back your decisions. You still take the learnings from that, right or wrong, and use that going forward. And if it wasn't for that, for me, if it wasn't for that mentality, that military moron mentality, I don't think we would be where we are right now.
And I want to ask you this, because failure, I know a lot of people, they fear failure, and especially, like, there's more businesses that fail than succeed. Yeah. For you, with those failures that you've had, do you just have that mindset to just keep, like, pushing forward no matter what the failure is, and embrace the fail?
I think it's more of a case of, well, I'm not going to die, so how bad can it be? It's like I've faced death. Like, and when death, because death was always part of the deployments we did. Like, the helicopter could crash. That's Josh Ports. Like a lot of other guys, Rudd's, all those guys. Yep. So it's a case of, well, look, I'm still alive. I'm still here. Am I going to die? What's the worst that can happen? Oh, it'd be embarrassing. Well, that's not bad at all. I'm good with that. Yeah. I mean, if I lose all my cash from having a crack at something, well, I'm still alive. I'll make it again. It's not a case of having to storm through it, because I made the decision before it that I could fail. Am I good with that? I could die. Am I good with that? Yes, I am. All right, go. That's always been the case. I think that's if the risks aren't so cataclysmic, even if I was going to die, is it something worth dying for? Well, yes. Well, I'm good. Keep going. You know what I mean? So that's where it's always been. And also, we said we were going to do something. Like, we said, this is the standard. So if the standard is to go push yourself through the hardest thing that we've ever asked you to push yourself through and come out the other side, then me suffering a loss in business is nowhere near that. It's not the same standard. In fact, I might lose face. It might be embarrassing. I don't care. I'm good with that.
And I think, too, what I take from that is you take the ego out of it, because a lot of people, that's what they fear the most is, I'll fall flat on my face, people are going to laugh, and my ego is going to be bruised. But as you say, if you're not going to die from it, who cares? Have a go, and it might be a success. Who knows? But then actually have a crack, and like you say as well, some of the best decisions you ever made were having a crack at 4RAR Commando selection, going in and doing SAS selection, and then where you are now in multiple businesses, and as you say, meeting your wife, who is as you said, one of the fittest people in this gym, but that's it. Have a crack. Yep. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, and also needs drives the means. So I need to, if I say I'm going to be a good dad or a good boss or or whatever it is, or a good leader, then I have to do what that entails, and I have to do it right or wrong. Not right or wrong. I have to do it win or lose. Yeah, and I have to show that I walk the walk, and I don't just talk the talk.
Yep.
And that's the greatest form. That's like rule 101 for leadership. Like, if I'm prepared to risk it, I can't expect. If I'm not prepared to risk it, I can't expect anyone else to take the same risk. I'm very risk. Like I'm quite happy with risk, and I think that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing right now.
Yep.
But also, when it came to the gym, it wasn't my intention to run the gym. It wasn't my intention to do this. Because, you look at traditionally, gyms don't do very well unless your model is something like Fitness First, where you build it up and then sell it, which is the very common model now for a lot of franchises. If that's the model, it's still hard work to do it, but the model was for me to go back and become a builder and surf every day. That was the job.
How you going with that, mate?
Not so good. But at the same time, what the gym has done, having to divert my efforts to make something of this, because at the end of the day, 6 of us put money into this place. So 6 of us trusted members of our group to take this to the next level, to do something with that money, because that money could have gone on their table for food for their family. So when you look at it that way, they've actually putting trust in you with that cash. And to me, that meant the more than anything. I have to come good on that. So if it means I have to interject myself into this environment to make it work, then that's what. If it means I make enemies, that's what it takes. The means, the trust overrode the ego, and that's, to me, I'll stand by that.
100%. And I think most people who come from integrity like you, and I know I do as well, my word is everything. If I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it, and I won't stop. And if it if it breaks me, if it makes me broke, or I'll find a way, because I've said I'll do what I've said I'm going to do, and there's no, I'm just like you, mate. I'm just a determined little shit that will make it happen.
I mean, you can pivot. You can realise that, okay, we're not going to make, like, this is going to cause me and my family too much drama unless we got to make some hard calls here. So you can pivot as long as when you're communicating the pivot that everyone's on board with why you're making that decision, why you're making that change. And it makes good logical sense, especially people who have vested interest in you. They'll understand it and they'll support it, especially if you communicate it well enough. Now, whilst I haven't done that all the time to the best of my ability, that's part of the process of running business. It's part of the process of learning this whole thing. So, to me, people say that a good characteristic for people who pass selection is that just very bullheaded and stubborn. And you could argue that the people who are bullheaded and stubborn might finish the course, but they don't get picked up necessarily. So it's good to follow through in what you say, but you don't have, a lot of time you don't have all the information. So when you say something, also be prepared to pivot on new information. Yeah.
And with that too, some of the lessons, as you say, being bullheaded, some of the lessons that you took into selection have been different with working in business. Like, you have to change that whole mindset. Sometimes you can't be bullheaded. You have to pull back. And lessons, so business, I've heard from a lot of business, it's a lot of character building. There's times where you love it. There's times where you hate it. And for you, it's probably been all those things. And you've learned a lot about yourself from starting business too.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You learn a lot about people who get it, people who don't get it, people who get into it for the wrong reasons, people who you didn't realise that they were absolutely the person you needed, or at that point in time in your life. So we're in that place right now where all our business partners, all the investors in our business, people we would love to have. It wasn't always the case. Sometimes you get selected for the team, sometimes you get to select the team, and you'd rather be in a position where you get to select the team.
Absolutely. And for you, mate, you mentioned being a dad. How has that changed your outlook on life?
I think it's made me double down on backing up what I say, because you're essentially their first example of how a man or a person should be and how they should conduct themselves on the planet. So to me, that's obviously a very important role to play. And it also, my lifestyle, thankfully, is enough where we have enough time where we get the ability for our daughter to do everything that she's dreamed of. Like, if my dream was to surf all day instead of going to school, then we didn't have the means necessarily to do that. But because we've got things like online school now, where my daughter, because she rides at a very high level, show jumping. So if because she's cottoned onto something so early in her life, at 6, that she's decided this is what I want to do, and she's so passionate about it, then just to have the means and the time to back a sport like show jumping and enable her to go around the country and compete in all the events. And then, you see her develop as part of that process. This is the culmination of everything. Absolutely.
And I think too, for you as well, you mentioned your dad was a great role model to you of, well, Nick, what's the backup plan if you don't? So you've had good role models as well as I had as well with my dad, of always work hard, and treat people the way you want to be treated. And so exactly right in the sense of, and I can sort of sense, mate, that your wife and you have rubbed off on your daughter and what she's chosen as you said, show jumping to move forward. So she's got that same, tenacity that you had as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, nature or nurture, I'm not sure, probably equal parts. But her risk appetite is very high. Obviously dealing with horses that are, 20 times heavier than her, 10 times bigger than her, and she's only little. She's only 13. And having these big beasts under her and then jumping 120 centimetre high jumps along a course where there's people watching. She's got to remember which way to turn. She's got to remember that because she's got a couple of horses, which ones, the different characteristics of each, how they need to be ridden differently. All those things, she handles the pressure very well. She, in fact, rides better if there's more pressure on.
Yeah, right.
If the occasion's higher, she rides even better. She's progressing very quickly. She's competing at levels above her level, because she's so dedicated. And, if she's found her thing that early, we've got no, we pull out all stops to support that, because it may turn to something, it may turn to nothing, but the process, this journey that she's on, is worth the
absolutely
worth the squeeze.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, mate, knowing what you know now and all that you've been through, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would he listen?
My advice would be to, follow your dreams. But, it's very hard. It's very easy for us to say find your purpose early, because unfortunately a lot of people don't. I was very lucky to have found that thing that piqued my imagination very early, and something that latched onto, because I was effectively, growing up in a rural area, shooting and driving and motorbikes and everything else. That's the army.
Adventure man, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, the army is an extension of this, and I get to serve. I get to do things that are high, at a very serious things. It's obviously, as a SAS, Special Forces gives you status amongst men. I didn't realise the impact of that as a kid, but I thought it'd be a cool thing. But it also sets up, to me, it's set up your mindset for life. Like, it's a good analogy. You change your perspective on certain things, put it into a different light. That's much more consumable, or much more attainable, much more surmountable. If you can manage that perception, and if you can change your perception on things through managing your perspective, then it makes things easier, even if it's 0.01% easier. But the key is that you don't know what's on the other side, so find a way to see what's on the other side and work through it.
As you say, small momentum is progression, isn't it? Like, it's just, if you're shifting,
take it.
Doesn't matter if you're shifting 2 millimeters forward just every day. If someone turns up to the gym and starts at 160 and they get down to 155, that's a win.
Progress.
It's progress. They're still progressing. That's what I'm taking away, is just every single day, as long as you're shifting that needle moving that needle forward, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, manage your expectation. Don't expect you're going to drop it all in six months.
That's right.
It could take 6 years, but as long as you're taking weight off, or whatever it is, whatever your goal is, adding weight to your barbell or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, at the end of the day, you've got to find the wins, because no one's going to feed it to you. And selection's a classic example of that. It's all bad. Okay, well, make part of it good. Make the next part good. Then wait till the next part. That's
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for you, mate, looking back now, and with 12 years service to your country and serving at the, at the tip of the spear, was joining the military still the best decision, apart from getting married and having your daughter? Was that still the best decision looking back now?
Oh, absolutely. If I had my time again, I'd still do the same thing. I'd join the army earlier. Yeah, I just joined the army when I joined the army. That's fine. But yeah, at the end of the day, my parents wouldn't sign off me going to join the army in year 11, did I say, as a 16-year-old, which you could have, but they wouldn't sign off on it. Fair enough. Okay, well, that's what I've got to do. I've got to do it. But at the end of the day, I still think whilst life was good, life is awesome, who knows? If I joined the army earlier, who knows what would have happened? Might not have passed selection, who knows? Might have been jaded, who knows? But I do still think that being in the regiment, being a Special Forces operator is the best job for a single man ever. In hands down, no matter what period of time you're in, maybe not necessarily in World War II, but, and you got to watch what you say. But at the same time, it set me up for everything that I do, everything that I am right now. And you can't get that experience anywhere else.
What advice, mate, would you give any young listener out there who is either thinking of, one, joining the military, or they might be thinking of starting a business? Or what advice, both, and it's a double-edged winded question here, of that the military side, just prepare like you did and just be a sponge and like speak to as many people as you can, ask all the questions. But in the business sense as well, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking of either Special Forces or starting a business?
The thing is, so when you leave SAS, for example, you're in the army, you are the top dog. Like in the army, you understand that because you're a combat arm and you are the very tip of the sphere, everything in the ADF is there to facilitate you doing your job effectively. When you leave that space, you've got to understand that you know nothing. And whilst you have that on your resume, it means nothing because it's not about capability anymore. It's about value. So the biggest thing I learned was that whilst being in Defence Force is your capacity and your capability to defend, to fight, to achieve mission success, all those sorts of things were very important. And very lucky to have the ability to actually follow through with mission execution and for real and do those jobs and do the things, no matter how bloody or whatever it was that I had to do, for good and bad. But then when you leave that space, understand that you've got to now, you know nothing. You've got to walk around with your hat in your hand and just learn, be the sponge. And I think that's the thing that has set me up. That's also the thing that's caused issues within our organisation. So, at the end of the day, not every relationship will permeate every facet or every phase of your life because people see things from different perspectives. But at the same time, it's that's ability to understand where you sit in the mix. And if you're too delusional or too overestimate where you sit in the mix, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So one is that being humble about it. Nothing overrides intelligent hard work. Like at the end of the day, if you're prepared to do the work and you sacrifice for it, you will see success in whatever form it comes. But a lot of people respect that as well. So it builds trust. You're willing to go the extra mile, produce the value where potentially there was no value before. All those sort of things. But that comes from humility. It comes from swallowing your ego. It comes from knowing that you don't know everything, and to work hard to at least increase your knowledge, expertise, and skills, and whatever it is that you put your head to.
I love that. Yeah. That's really good advice to any young person that is, thinking of, having a career in the military. And I think too, it was something that when I had Dan Fortune on, who as well from the regiment, he said, guys have got to set themselves up to not just pass selection, but actually be an operator longer term than just passing selection, as you've said as well, and many other SF guys that have had on, is don't just see to the selection and then getting your beret. It's, no, I want to be an operator. I want to be a contributor to the team, not just have the beret and wear the beret. There's a big difference in that too.
Yeah, I mean, the goal for me was to become a patrol commander. That's it. Selection was a speed bump. Selection was a speed bump. It was to go to war. But I knew that, at the end of the day, being a patrol commander at war is the loftiest of lofties. For me, it was like that's the ultimate. And seeing the precedents that were set by patrol commanders in those conditions, just go, man, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's looking beyond selection. It's wearing the hat is nothing. You still got to embody that hat. You still got to be that, provide value in that space and capability. But then it never ends. You could be the best trooper. Then you got to be the best 2IC. Then you got to be the best PC. Then you got to be the best troop sergeant, whatever it is. Yeah. So there's always a next horizon.
Absolutely. And looking back now, mate, you've served with some absolute amazing dudes, and that we've mentioned throughout the podcast. And Afghanistan, the regiment lost a number of guys. 2 Commando lost a lot of guys. The wider army lost a lot of guys. For you, being that you were Special Forces as well, how do you reflect on, like, we're coming up to Anzac Day, we're recording this coming up to Anzac Day. How do you reflect on those guys? And I know you've mentioned throughout the podcast of how good they were, but do you take a moment on Anzac Day just to reflect on your own service, but also their service?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, same with, you name it. Any like even on the anniversary of Brett's death, all those days, it gives you pause for thought in terms of what you've achieved, but also, I mean, it goes beyond us as well. It goes, back to the generations from Australia's Federation, like from World War One all the way through, even the Boer.
Yep.
All those times where, hands down, there's no one that can argue with me that we wouldn't have the society we have right now if it weren't for the sacrifices of those men. And for anyone to come up with an argument that counters that truth is like unrealistic and delusional. Yeah. So we have to remember, we have to pause, we have to make note of those days and those times that it is to celebrate the sacrifices that were made. And if we don't do it, then we start to forget who we were and where we've come from. And when we start doing that, it becomes very dangerous for our society. And we're starting to see signs where people are starting to take Anzac Day with a grain of salt. And it's worrying, but I also understand that when I look at the current operators and the current soldiers, because I still do some contract work back for the ADF, when I look at the calibre of men and women that are coming through, it gives me confidence that people are still flying the flag for Australia. And if there ever was to be a time, I think that recruiting for the ADF was at an all-time high during the global war on terror, especially after 9/11. So it's like there are still people amongst us who are willing to make the same sacrifice and throw down as required. So that still gives me confidence, but I think there's more instances now more than ever that there's less respect for these days than there was in the past.
Yeah, and as you said, mate, we owe it to the 103,000 men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And I know for myself, mate, Anzac Day for me, it's the most somber day, and it's probably it's a day I look forward to every year because I've got 5 relatives that are on the walls of the Hall of Remembrance, and I've been to all their graves. I've been to Gallipoli. I've been to the Western Front. And for me, wearing their medals and marching in honour of them and looking at the freedoms that, we get to record here in Perth, beautiful. We haven't got bombs going off. We live in pretty well. We've got freedom. I owe it to my family members, but I also owe it to the 103,000 men and women that have made the ultimate sacrifice for me to enjoy that freedom. So absolutely well said.
You just have to travel outside Australia to realise how lucky we've got it.
100%.
It's just to take note of how other people are living, to realise that the conditions we have in Australia are unreal, unbelievable, so good. But because a lot of people have never been outside that space, they take this society we've got now for granted.
Absolutely.
And and critical of it, which is,
And I think too, as you say as well, the fault lies with them to get to that point. Like, if you think about it, that if someone's complaining of why it's so bad, well, you're in charge of your own life. Fix it. If you if you can't fix it, find a way to fix it. Like, that's and that's, I think you're 100% correct in where you've been to third world countries. I have as well. I've travelled. So it gives me an appreciation of how lucky we are in this country. Like, we are so blessed, so lucky, and the fault lies with you. You've got to fix the problem. Yeah,
we're shifting away from this, the requirement for individuals to hold themselves accountable and take personal responsibility for their situation. They're shifting the focus away from that being not as important as to start to blame others for your current situation and play that victim card. And it's worrying because it seems to be more and more prevalent. it's always someone else's fault. And when you look at the first immigrants that came to Australia and how hard they had to do it, how difficult it was, even going back to our grandfather's generation, where it was super difficult to make any gains in life. And they had to live the barest of, existences based on their very poor salaries and the hard work that they had to do for those salaries. You just realise that it wasn't too long ago that the hard work laid down by our grandfathers paved the world for where we are now, and we are living the most rich, almost, too luxurious lifestyles right now, where we start to really take it for granted and start to blame other people for our situations which are totally within our control.
Yep. Mate, I'm so glad you have said that, because it is so true. And we've become such a society of greed and want. And it's, as you say, it is that sense of, well, do you actually really need that? Well, no, I don't need that. Or can I go without? Well, yes, I can, but it's a choice. We've all got a choice. And it's that, as you say, haven't got to go too far back to see where we were and where life has come, and, through all the sacrifices of our forefathers and our, you've only got to look at that and just see exactly that. Yeah. And I think I wanted to bring that in because I like to sit when we have that moment's silence and just reflect and just do a self-reflection as well on where we are in the world, but also, as you say, where remembering all those, you've mentioned throughout the podcast some amazing names, but it even goes further back, like the Boer War, the First World War, the Second World War, Korea, Malaya, Vietnam, all the current day, and also too, remembering Porter, like Josh Porter, and all the operations that aren't in the main frame of what people's thoughts are, and stopping and reflecting. So absolutely.
Yep.
So for you, mate, how do people get in contact with you if they want to reach out and talk to you regarding selection or even business? How do they find you?
You obviously go to themillgym.com, which is our main website. We've also started a new fitness competition called tier1games.com.au. Basically a fitness competition with a shooting competition. And or go to Instagram. Resilience 101 is my tag on Instagram. Also the Mill Gym and Tier 1 Games.
Yeah, awesome. And that now is, so the Tier 1 Games, I want to just touch on that a little bit more. Is that to bring community and sort of what's involved in that?
Well, if we looked at the things that we enjoy most as veterans, it's one, that lifestyle and that camaraderie and those people around us and that purpose for our, that life purpose we had, and also the activity and the fitness that was required to do that job. So if we can combine the two, and then we've got something that's powerful. And so we thought about the tactical games in the US and the increase in popularity of that sport over there. And obviously we've got different firearms laws here in Australia.
Every state,
state by state. So we've got if we are going to find a way to bring the veterans community and giving them a different purpose, because what we've found since starting Tier 1 Games is there's more veterans signing on to join gun clubs, because there's now an activity which they can get their teeth into rather than doing just static shooting or just, so there's actually more involved in becoming good at something, and it's very much harks back to their old military life. So doing a workout and doing a shooting stage as part of that workout is to me, that's the magic mix. So
that's mad.
We basically did a proof of concept at the start of the year. We ran our first event in March this year in Brizzy. Feedback from the industry itself has been unbelievable, but also the amount of communications, calls, everything else from the wider public and the veteran community. What I've found with the veteran community in Queensland is very strong. To me, it's very disparate in Perth, but in Queensland, it's very strong in terms of there's people willing to back you no matter where you come from, no matter what unit you were from. If you're a veteran and you start a business, people want to back you. So I found that quite refreshing, actually. And it's been unbelievable. Like I always say that I've answered my phone more times in the last 12 weeks than I have in my entire life. Because it's been so popular. And we've always still got the compliance issues to work through, with the regulators in every state. But that's just a thing because it's a new sport. What I've also found is because it's a new sport, we've also got our competitors who are coming out of the woodwork and doing their thing, which is absolutely expected in business and par for the course. So yeah, bring it on. But it's been so refreshing to see the uptake in Tier 1 and the popularity that the support we've received. And we love it. So we're just going to keep going with it.
So with that going into the future, will you look at opening it up to like first responders as well and not just military?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's open to the public. So we are going to field law enforcement, emergency services, military teams if they want to join in. We're going to offer different scales of workouts, so allow different age groups to come in, different capability groups to come in as well.
Yep.
Obviously, it's subject to the current regulations, so there's no compromising on safety and firearms usage and all those sorts of things and the regulations around that. But the way it's set up now, no matter what state we're in, there's no reason why we can't run the Tier 1 games to its fullest extent.
Yep. Because
the laws restricting the uses of firearms in our sport don't really restrict the use of firearms in our sport like this. It's really about how you conduct the training and the compliance, and it's all part of the course for all our host gun clubs. So we found that whilst people have said, you won't be able to do that in Australia, well, actually it's not easy, but it's definitely easier than we thought it would be. So, yeah, it's open to anyone, really. Once we get it to a point where we're running 2 in every state every year, and we'll run a national and a trans-Tasman championship every 2 years.
Yeah, nice.
That's the goal, to grow it to as big as we can get it.
That's awesome, mate. I love how your brain thinks of these awesome, cool little ideas, and, that's just awesome.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like it's a given. Like, I've been shooting my whole life, but there's guys who don't shoot. So, like, why don't you guys do what the tactical games are doing? Yeah, actually, we're on it. But, so other people thought about it as well. It's not like there's no new business ideas. It's just the timing and the era that you can make it work or not. Right now, we're on the cusp of starting this new sport, which is there's resistance to it only because there's not enough education around it. So hence me answering the phone and making the phone calls and presenting and trying to communicate to all the regulating bodies and trying to get in front of them and saying, look, this is still safe, it's still good to go. It's just we're adding a workout part to it.
And I think too, what it is people fear change, and as you just said, if people don't know, well, they're going to put up, it's not going to work, but once they're educated and they do know, change is, people go, actually, that's a great idea.
They're just looking at it from the lens of their own experience. If they haven't experienced what we've experienced, then they can't look at it through that lens.
That's right. And if it's going to help people, and I know you're big on mental health, and if it's going to help people, and build community, and isn't that what it's all about? Well,
it's changed. It's already changing the game. Like the amount of buzz around it is like it's obviously a shot in the arm for the firearms industry because there's still this stigma around people who own firearms. So it's just this, they're all violent or whatever that is that people think, or we shouldn't have guns at all. Those arguments for another time. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, there's been more uptake on this. The veteran community has been right on it. They love it, especially in Queensland. It's been really good. Even the police, all the people around it saying it's a really good idea. Now we've just got to execute. So the 2 events we've run so far were super successful, really, really good. We've got more in the works. We're going to go to New Zealand.
Wow. Yeah, right. And that's awesome, mate. That is just, and as you say, it's just through an idea of what you've loved, and done your whole life. Now going broader and which is awesome. So, mate, for you going forward, and this is the final thing that I want to ask you is, what are the plans going forward for you and your family into the future? What do you hope to just do now as, going forward as Nick? You're a business owner, you're busy doing Tier 1, but what else are you going to do?
Well, I mean, good question. I'm 50 this year, so I've got to look at what's the exit. I got a very good bit of sage advice. It was a given during the time in the unit, but it was actually put into words by one of my current business partners who's not a military guy. He said, Nick, always know the outdoor before you go in the indoor. And so that was always very much a planning consideration for the military. But in the business, it holds just as much weight. So as a 50-year-old now, knowing that, I'm already starting to see my ability to keep up with these young blokes is getting not as easy. So it doesn't mean I'll stop, just means I've got to manage my expectations around it. But there will also be a time when I won't be able to represent to this level, because at the end of the day, to be a trainer here at this gym and in Brisbane is you have to meet minimum standards. The minimum standards are higher than the entry standards. So as soon as that day comes, obviously you're going to fight tooth and nail for it. But as soon as that day comes, then you can't lower the standard. You have to leave. So it's one of those things where you have to start making plans for that exit. But in the meantime, we still keep doing what we do. Tier 1 is the next horizon for us, build it up to the next level. We've got an exploration business next door, which certainly gives me options where I don't need to be physically fit anymore to still stay in the game, still do the business side of it. So I've got options, which is good. I've obviously got some plans that I need to be putting into place now. You know, retirement's 15 years, so still, you know, long way away.
Yeah.
And it's whilst I'm still capable, whilst I can still shoot most days, whilst I can still compete, then I'll just keep doing as is.
Absolutely, and just as you say, mate, just you're better educated now on what your body does with the chronic fatigue, and you're still that to manage. And as you said throughout the podcast, being a great dad, supporting your daughter, and being a great husband, which you're doing that as well. So, mate, the future's looking bright for Nick and the family. So
yeah, thanks, Adam.
Yeah. And mate, it's been an absolute honour and privilege to come over here and catch up with you and record your story and go into a bit more in depth of your story. And mate, as I say, thank you for giving up your precious time and sitting with me today and recording your story. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. See you on the front line.